Hello, how are you? Today it's time for another one of the videos in the I Ching series, and this is all from The Magician's I Ching, which is the book that I have published with Aeon Books, and you can feel free to pick that up at Amazon or at Aeon's website. They have regular and ebook versions. And I was going to say also before I continue that if you watched the rest of the series, if you haven't watched the earlier videos, you might want to do that first. If you have watched it and you do like this series, then please feel free to share these videos at any of the social media that you might use, and to subscribe to this channel to make sure that you don't miss any future videos in this series. And finally, I should note that everything that I talk about in this video series in the public YouTube channel, I also have videos and more written information that are provided only to students of the Yifa Society, which reveals stuff that I don't talk about in public about these hexagrams, and so a lot of other details and things. And now you've got everything you need to start with the I Ching in the book, The Magician's I Ching, and these hexagrams, these videos on these hexagrams add to that, give you some additional kind of guidance. But if you want beyond that to move into more serious territory, then you should really consider joining the Yifa Society, because I'm sure that if you're interested in the I Ching, you're going to find the Yifa Society very worthwhile if you're willing to put in the time and the work. So hexagram number 6, Sung, is a response to hexagram number 5. Here you have moon in the bottom and heaven above. Now, hexagram number 5, being pause, is not an amazing hexagram. It represents a situation where there's a lot of trouble and learning curve and all that sort of thing. But at least there you have the trigrams are in their proper places. And here, I was just drawing the hexagram. In this version, what you have is the moon is below. So the moon is hanging low in the sky, and heaven is above. This is the opposite of the natural places. And heaven tends to ascend and the moon tends to descend. They do not meet each other. This is not a good scenario at all. In fact, struggling is one of the more negative of all the hexagrams of the I Ching. They're the opposite of their natural places, so it's a time of dark times and conflict, hence struggling. The text talks about how when one's confidence and sincerity are doubted, a struggle begins. And caring about justice or persevering, continuing forward and trying to be proper makes things work for a while. But if the struggle is pushed to its extreme, the conflict is not in some way resolved, then there will be disaster. So it is good if a great man, and remember, a great man in this context means somebody in a position of wisdom and or authority, ideally both, comes and judges the dispute. But do not cross the great river. Why would you not cross the great river? Well, because here the moon trigram is at the bottom. The moon is the pit. Remember, if you try to cross now, you will sink into the abyss, right? So if you're trying to make some big change when you're in the middle of a conflict with other people, that's not the right time to start making a big change. Crossing the river always means making a big change. You don't want to do that until the struggle is resolved. So the superior individual does not engage in any activity without careful planning right from the beginning. You have to be prepared and make sure that you've done everything right. The implication in this hexagram, by the way, is that you will not have done so, right? If you look at the lines, you see line 1 says, don't push the issue, don't speak too much. You might be a little bit shamed because you didn't speak up, right? But you'll avoid starting a bigger conflict. In the longer term, this is luckier. right? This is the bottom line. It's a weak line, a yin line. It says, don't push it. Don't try to be a loudmouth. Don't try to argue, even if you think you're right. It's not the time to do that, right? Line 2 says, overwhelmed, retreat quickly. Take refuge with 300 family members. And it says here the 300 family members is a reference to the 3 solid lines that are at the top, right? The 3 solid lines of the heaven trigram. That's where you want to flee to. So that's the place to find refuge, right? It says if you've tried to take action too soon. This is the one little solid line that's at the bottom. It's surrounded by broken lines. It says you misread the situation. Now go and try to find people who will help you. Right? Go back to your people, whoever your people are, however you interpret who your people are. Line 3 says, relying on ancient virtues, guard against danger. It's trouble at first, but better later. Support the king, but don't seek public office. Right. So it says basically that you're at the point. This is kind of the peak point of potential danger. If you rush forward now, you're going to have to fall back again later. And if you keep yourself quiet, but don't get involved in something that you know is, or that you feel is not correct, right? If there's a conflict here with superiors, don't take any public office, because then you're really being complicit. So you have to walk that fine line between loyalty and going too far into benefiting from something that you think is going to go wrong, or that something that you feel is wrong or unjust. In line 4, we have overwhelmed, retreat, realize the folly of what you're thinking, return to reason, push for the right way, but seek peace and not revenge. So this is where you figure out that you've made a mistake, you go back, you try to become reasonable. Now you still try to do the right thing, but you are, it's especially important that in this case, because we're always talking about a struggle between 2 groups of some kind here, 2 people, two bands, whatever, that what you have to seek for here is a peaceful resolution of the conflict, not to win, right? Because this is not a situation where winning is the really viable end game, if by winning you mean that you defeat utterly the other person or the other side. Right? In fact, line 5 says, conflict ends with a fair judge arbitrating the dispute, great fortune. The key thing to look for in this hexagram, this is the ruling line, is to understand that if you're getting into deeper and deeper into a conflict with somebody else because you have been doubted in your confidence or your sincerity, or because people have felt you lacked conviction and tried to take advantage, wickedness was not met by firmness, as the Confucian commentary says. The key thing to look for as a way to resolve this is to find that great man, to look for a resolution, not to look for victory, and to look for some third party that can help bring about that resolution. Line 6 says, the sash of honor given today is lost tomorrow. Because it was gained out of a conflict that was a needless conflict to begin with, it brings little respect. So anything that you win out of all of this, if it was for something that was not necessary in the first place, is not going to be worth the struggle, the conflict, right? And the struggle, the term struggle in this hexagram, it can apply to conflict as in battle, or to conflict as in a legal dispute. So it talks about unjust war or a legal dispute, right? And by legal dispute, I think we can interpret that broadly in the sense of not necessarily going to court, but of a dispute over some kind of issue of justness, not just justice, right? But of something being unfair. And in all of this hexagram, it tells you to stand your ground. It never tells you, except for line 1 where it says just shut up, right? But everywhere else, it doesn't tell you that you should try to take false advantage, in fact, in line 3, and then it tells you that you shouldn't take false advantage, and in line 6, it suggests that if you do take false advantage, whatever you get is going to ultimately bring you very little respect. But so it's not about not being true to your convictions. On the contrary, if you have strong convictions here, that will benefit you. But it's about how you express those convictions and to what ends, right? So it's fine to have strong convictions, to believe in the rightness of what you're doing. But don't do it in such a way that you're intentionally fanning the flame of the conflict, that you're making the fight bigger. That's not going to help. That's going to end up causing more strife rather than less. So you have to stick to your conviction and not give in to anything that you feel is outside of that conviction of your true will. But you don't want to, at the same time, misunderstand for yourself the line between what is following your conviction and what is looking to just bloody someone's nose, right? Looking for the fight. Try to find the peaceful path. I think that's all for today. Once again, if you're interested in more information about this hexagram and a lot of more information in general about the spiritual path, then you may want to consider contacting me about the Yi Fa Society. And either way, please feel free to share this and feel free to subscribe. Thank you very much.